Okay, by a show of hands, how many of us have animals back at home? Okay, most of us here have animals and we consider them to be part of our family and care for them as such. Even non-pet owners hold the moral responsibility to make sure animals are not cruelly tested on. We have been researching and have become experts on animal testing. Animal testing is an ongoing controversial topic which can be viewed in an ethical, moral, and economic perspective. This speech will include information discussing animal testing based on different people's viewpoints. While animal testing has been going on for years, that does not make it morally acceptable. Animals deserve to be treated as independent living beings, not as test subjects that are not being shown compassion and respect. On the website NEAVS, standing for New England Anti-Vivisection Society, founded in 1895, published in 2014, states, vivisection is one of the worst forms of instrumentalized animal abuse in our society, and it is sanctioned and legal abuse. Within laboratory walls, what can be done to animals has no limit except those imposed by a committee selected by the facility itself. Animals can suffer for years with no time for recuperation in between their testing. They can be forced into dark spaces with no sunlight or mobilization for months at a time. Not only do animals suffer physically, but they do mentally as well. The cognitive problems associated with animal testing are overlooked because they cannot be physically seen. David Fraser, an animal activist, states in his article, A Practical Ethic for Animals, published by Springer Science and Business Media in 2011, if animals are raised in unhealthy or distressing circumstances or live in disturbed ecological systems, they may be in a state of distress or deprivation for most of their lives. Animals can experience the same feelings as humans, such as anxiety, depression, and fear. Animals who experience little to no sunlight while being tested on are at high risk for depression and show signs of it. As previously cited, the website NEAVS states, standard lab conditions such as small, crowded cages, lack of enrichment, loud noises, and bright lights out of sync with natural lighting, and are known to create stress in animals who in turn show physical symptoms of distress, including chronic inflammatory conditions. Not only do these animals have to suffer with the physical pain of being tested on, but also the mental anguish and despair that can last a lifetime. Why should innocent animals go through the pain and suffering of being tested when there are inmates who commit capital crime condemning their own future?
The phrase that may be thrown around by angry people regarding animal testing may sound something like, animals have feelings too, they're innocent, and why don't we just test on humans? Now this may be a bit of a stretch to just say pick a human and test on them, but since animals are the innocent ones, some may ask, why don't we test on prisoners? Ones who have committed serious crimes worth the death penalty. The comedian Ellen DeGeneres, a woman that we all know and love, sharing her opinion stating, if you want to test cosmetics, why do it on some poor animal who hasn't done anything? They should use prisoners who have been convicted of murder or rape instead. So rather seeing if perfume irritates a bunny rabbit's eyes, they should throw it in Charles Manson's eyes and ask who it hurts. Ellen clearly states that we should not be testing on animals. However, we should test on something that's not so innocent at all, a prisoner with great convictions. While we also point out that we should find a way to make so that we can test products more using ways so that we don't have to test on a living thing. However, the problem is that so far we do not have these technologies and we continue to need to resort to animal testing and debating the possibility of testing on prisoners, as Ellen said, who have been convicted of rape or murder. Just as the death penalty can be seen as ethical or unethical, this would apply to the same to testing on prisoners. For their crime to be unethical and heartless, it would be equally matched to that testing be done to them could be seen as, or a testing can be seen as ethical or unethical because of what they had done to somebody else. It's a what goes around comes around type concept. Don't do the crime if you can't do the time. If we made animal testing illegal and testing on prisoners legal, this could completely change our view on what is ethical when it comes to the laws regarding prison. Prisoners or criminals may think twice about committing such a heinous crime such as murder or rape if they know their fate being more than imprisonment, but instead in a lab. Dave Gibson, a columnist, and on the side of people who are for testing on prisoners, also does have an ethical block in his mind, stating in the article, "Test drugs, cosmetics on inmates, not animals." He says, "My proposal is this. Testing would not be forced upon anyone. The inmates would be offered some special privileges such as eating or showering, etc., in exchange for allowing doctors and scientists to test experimental drugs and procedures upon them. This shows another perspective on the same topic, whereas we stop testing on animals altogether and then offer inmates on death row the opportunity to volunteer to be used as a test subject." After this, Gibson shares, "Cosmetic laboratories throughout this country pour bottles after bottle of drain cleaner into the eyes of rabbits, simply to determine that you should not pour drain cleaner in your eyes. Let us either ban the practice of cosmetic product testing altogether or employ our violent criminals for this procedure. I would reserve that particular test for child molesters. Let them suffer stinging physical wounds the same way their victims will suffer emotionally for the rest of their lives. Make someone who deserves to suffer for their actions be tested for general human safety and leave the animals alone. Again, why test on extremely innocent animals that some of us may call our pets when there are horrible, not so innocent at all people out there, just sitting in a cell, not facing the fate that they deserve?" Dave Gibson relates the idea of giving prisoners the option to be tested on with an economic standpoint, saying, "Federal and state prison systems would also be allowed to work out details with cosmetic companies for the same purpose. Drug and cosmetic companies would pay the government enormous sums for this right, money that could go to the offender's victims."
All right, if you look at the economic standpoint of animal testing, PETA.org, which is an People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, states that in 2014 that $16 billion of taxpayer money is wasted on animal testing per year, and there's about $18 billion if you do the math that is actually spent for taxpayer money. But since I say wasted because 92% of animal tests do not even go into human trials. They either are unsafe or they just don't work in humans in general. And if we switch our taxpayer money to alternative sources, then we take away a fraction of the time and a fraction of the cost. And the biggest alternative to these testing, not in animals or humans, is called in vitro testing. And in vitro testing is making models of human organs that create the same reaction when exposed to chemicals that actual human body would. So, as stated on the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences, which is a government-regulated website in 2014, that unlike animal tests that takes weeks to months to even find out a conclusion, that in vitro testing, if we do fund in vitro testing, then they can find out the chemical reaction within 3 minutes to an hour. So that is just a small fraction of 3 minutes to a few months. And so if we keep depending on animals for testing, then it's only a matter of time before the rate in which we develop new chemicals is greater than the rate in which we test them, because animal testing takes so long. And I don't know if you can't really see this, but this is the type of toxicity and how much it costs to study. And what I've highlighted here is that it's phototoxicity, but right here it says in animal testing it's $11,500, and in a vitro test would be $1,300, so about 10%. And then right here, genotoxic cancer risk. This is the biggest one because in animal testing this costs $700,000, but if you were to do an in vitro test, it only costs $22,000. So in reality, if you think about just a fraction of the cost, it's huge. It's a huge amount of taxpayer money that goes to something that, well, 92% of it doesn't even work. So, I mean, this is just in vitro testing, but there are other alternative sources too.
In vitro testing is the main substitute for alternative animal testing. However, there are many other alternatives with economic benefits that also relieve animal rights activists. For example, U.S. and European agencies recently found a new option to further research in skincare without harming animals whatsoever. This impressive method focuses on the use of synthetic skin called Kerositex. This new technology reacts as a natural human skin would and is able to endure test chemical procedures and substances that would damage the human skin. The substitute within the experiment revealed results of showing the same effects on the manufactured skin as seen in previous tests using animals, such as rabbits, mice, and other mammals. Michael Balls, a scientist, released a statement in his article titled Statement on the Application of the Epidermal Human Skin Model for Skin Corrosion Testing, published on March 21st, 2000, quoting, "Human skin models are now in use, including the validated epidermis test, which has been accepted almost universally as a total replacement for the skin corrosion studies in rabbits." So they're saving millions of rabbits' lives that are being tested on every day. Now, while scientists are still working to discover new ideas of humane ways to avoid brutality, schools are also attempting to prevent animals from being abused or tested on. Harvard University, Stanford University, as well as Yale are now practicing effective non-animal teaching methods, providing a less expensive as well as a more humane way of observation. Furthermore, donated patient cadavers can be used to simulate human bypass cardiac surgery and their physiology, surgical training, and pharmacology programs. I want you all to understand that the economic and social push against testing is to stop future generations from continuing this experience. Jonathan Balcom, a respected journalist for PETA.org, quotes, "A study of first-year biology undergraduates found that the examination results of the students who used model rats were equivalent to those who had performed rat dissections."
For those of us who have animals at home, you wouldn't want to dream of even seeing your animal go through any sort of harm. And one can make up their own opinion on if animal testing is ethical or not, but scientific evidence shows that these alternative tests are a fraction cheaper and do not cause innocent animals to suffer. And animal testing is an outdated practice, and if it keeps going on, not only will animals suffer, but science will too.